All right, this is Steve Vai, and I'm here with my good friend Joe Satriani, creating this wonderful radio show, Surfing to Shockwave, brought to you by Ibanez Guitars. And we're sitting here talking about Joe's wonderful career and the past, the present, and the future. How old were you when you started playing?
It would have been, there would have been...
1970, September.
Yeah, September 70 is when I announced that I was going to be a guitarist, and then a few weeks later got a guitar, a Hagstrom 3.
Yeah.
But I'd been exposed to the instrument because my sister Marion was a folk guitarist, so there was this nylon string guitar that was bopping around the house for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And every once in a while I'd pick it up, but it was, you know, I associated it with folk guitar.
Yeah.
So I wasn't thinking it was something I could get into. But I think that the first set of chords that I learned were from a sheet that Marion gave me that was like, you know, the magic chord sheet with 17 of the most important first position chords.
I think you made me memorize that too.
They're still invaluable.
They're still invaluable.
So there you go.
Right.
It's a great chord sheet.
One of the really cool things I noticed about my lessons, and I was 12, and probably you were 14 or 15.
15, yeah.
And was just, even at that age, I had there was all the chords, the open chords, the Bible of chords, but you had these beautifully delicious, rich chord voicings, and that you showed me how to write the tab. Mm-hmm. And I was like, where did these come from? And they all went from one to the next, and they had nothing to do with that little chord sheet.
Right, yeah.
Where did they come from?
I learned from the jumping point from after the magic chord sheet. Maybe that was Mel Bay, I'm going to guess. It was a Mel Bay book. Was probably a Mickey Baker chord book. At the time, I didn't know who he was. He looked like a really fascinating dude on the cover. Yeah. Goatee and a big fat guitar, you know. It's something you can't relate to, but the chord patterns and the voicings were so unusual.
Yeah.
And at that point, anything that made my fingers hurt, I thought, I got to learn that. I got to get over that. And they did sound bigger and richer. And then I got a hold of a book called Joe Pass Chords. Mm-hmm. And Joe Pass, fantastic jazz guitar player, had written this chord book from the opposite angle from Mickey Baker. Instead of starting with the name of the chord and saying this finger is here on this string because that's that note and that's the interval that you need to make this chord happen, you'd get, in Joe's book, you'd get 3 pages of major chord sounds. And then there'd be 50 chords of every kind of major mode, you know, would work, but there were no chord names. The idea was learn the forms, relate to it from your ear, let your ear decide this will work.
Yeah.
So he's coming from a jazz improv point of view, not from a riff rock point of view or from a funky pop kind of thing, I guess, that Mickey Baker was coming from. And the two together were not me. I'm still just a rock and roll kid, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I'm saying, okay, here's raw information from these other two older generation sources, but there's something really cool about it. How can I put it together and make it work for what my generation wants to hear?
Yeah. I still use some of those chords that you showed me back then.
They're fantastic chords.
They're
they
just
really
so rich
are.
and beautiful.
And they sound great on the guitar.
Yeah, and especially when you're a kid and you're doing your major, you know, your triads and your minor chords, and all of a sudden you get like a B flat 6/9, sharp 11, you know, and it's like, oh,
yeah.
Wow, it's like the sun just came out.
Yes, yeah, very rich.
Yeah, really rich.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting is I really feel so fortunate in that I had Joe as a teacher. I had you as my teacher every week, about 3 years, and I really learned all the fundamentals and you know, the thing that was most striking to me that I remember that I think probably had the biggest influence on me in my lessons is every time your fingers hit the guitar, what came out sounded like music, even if it was like a little scale or something. There was this beautiful sort of poetry in the way your fingers moved and just the way they looked on the neck, and that had a big impact. Because I was a hack, obviously.
No, you weren't a hack. No, you're a really good student. We should have, of course, recorded it. We should have had John Luini filming the lessons. You were not yet born. However,
I have a time machine. I do have a recording that we did.
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
nice.
called Reflections on a Year and a Half.
Oh, great.
Because that's how long I'd been playing.
Wow.
And you had that 2-track.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
really funny. I can play it for you. I even remember how it goes.
Wow, that's cool.
It's great. Right. And you sent me the tape, so I still have the little
Wow.
it was
It was
reel
probably,
to reel.
what was a Sony 2-track maybe or
Yep,
something?
it was a Sony 2-track. Fantastic.